My name is Mike, and this nightmare began just after we got the keys to our first place. My fiancé and I, a young Asian couple, were over the moon. It was a modest two-story house in a sleepy Georgia town. Nothing flashy, but it was ours. A quiet street, a fenced-in yard, neighbors with perfectly normal houses. We felt like we'd beaten the system, buying a home so young. That feeling of safety and pride was stolen from us, piece by piece. The first week was a blur of unpacking boxes and meeting the locals. The folks to our right were a sweet, retired couple. The guy across the street even brought over a welcome plant. But the house on our left, it was a void. No one ever came or went. The blinds were perpetually drawn, creating a permanent twilight inside. A car sat in the driveway, but the house felt abandoned. The only sign of life was a figure we'd sometimes see standing perfectly still in the front window. One afternoon, hauling groceries, my fiancée nudged me. "Mike," she whispered. I glanced over. A man was there, just a silhouette behind the sheer curtain, but his posture was rigid, directed right at us. He didn't wave. The second our eyes found him, he melted back into the shadows. We brushed it off. Some people are just odd. But the sightings became a pattern. I'd catch him in the living room window as I left for work. My fiancée saw him upstairs when she grabbed the mail, always watching, never acknowledging. A glance, and he'd vanish. Then, around midnight one night, I was passing our bedroom window. Our room faced his. This time, he wasn't hiding. He was standing there, fully illuminated, his face turned directly toward our window. He was staring right at us. I froze, my skin prickling. The instant he knew I'd seen him, he stepped back into the dark. I tried to laugh it off with my fiancée. "Great," I said. "We've got a peeping Tom for a neighbor." The very next morning, there was a knock at our door. It was him. His name was Gordon. He apologized for the night before, claiming he was just adjusting something on his windowsill. He smiled the whole time, a wide, practiced smile. It was disarming enough that I accepted his apology. He was odd, sure, but he'd made the effort. We decided to let it go. A week later, my fiancée shook me awake. "Someone's in the yard," she hissed. Half asleep, I stumbled to the window. A dark figure was moving deliberately through our backyard. A man. My heart hammered. I yelled, "Hey!" Probably not the smartest move. The figure bolted, slamming our gate shut behind him. We lay there, hearts pounding, too scared to go out and check. A few nights after that, it happened again. Rustling, the sound of metal scraping, like someone trying to force a lock. This time I was at the window in an instant. There he was again. I shouted that I was calling the cops. As he fled, slamming the gate, the porch light from 2 houses down caught his face. It was Gordon. I yelled his name into the night, but he just kept walking. That was it. I marched over to his house and pounded on the door. He answered almost immediately, still in his clothes, that same smile plastered on his face. He laughed and said he was just chasing off some local kids who jumped fences. He said they'd hopped from his yard into ours. "It happens all the time," he said, with a wink. I nodded and went home, but I didn't believe a word. The look in his eyes wasn't friendly. It was cold. The next day, he invited us over for dinner, Friday night, Chinese food. We felt obligated, thinking it might smooth things over. We were wrong. The second we walked in, the air was thick. Gordon was already drunk, and he just got drunker. He made a snide comment about how he knew we'd love Chinese food, chuckling to himself. Passive-aggressive remarks kept slipping out. When the food arrived, he snapped at us for offering to help set the table. The whole meal was a pressure cooker. Then, as the wine bottle emptied, the mask came off. He started making racist comments, getting louder and more aggressive. He talked about the town's history, about how it was meant to be a certain way. He finally admitted it was him in our yard those nights. No more excuses. The climax came when he screamed that we weren't welcome, that we didn't belong. We didn't say a word. We just got up and left, racing back to our house, locking the door behind us. We went to the other neighbors. Some were shocked, others weren't surprised. They told us Gordon was a bitter drunk whose wife had left him years ago. That didn't make us feel any safer. We tried to avoid him, living in a state of constant dread, jumping at every shadow. Then, one night, a brick came crashing through our living room window. Glass exploded everywhere. We knew it was him. We filed a police report, but with no proof and his calm denials, they couldn't do a thing. We talked about getting cameras, about staying and fighting, but we were terrified. The mental toll was crushing. We felt something much worse was coming. Less than 2 months after moving in, we were packing boxes again. We couldn't live next to someone who radiated that much hate, someone who had already trespassed and then attacked our home. We filed one last detailed report with the police, who promised to monitor the situation. It wasn't enough. We fled, leaving behind the dream we'd worked so hard for. I genuinely believe if we'd stayed, we would have ended up on the news. We just had to move on and rebuild. This next story happened to me, Noah, in late 2021. My fiancée, Gabby, and I found a beautiful 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood. It felt perfect for starting our family. The neighbors seemed great, especially the couple next door, Daniel and Veronica. They were in their late 30s, super friendly, and even baked us a red velvet cake as a welcome gift. It was delicious. The first few weeks were idyllic, until the shouting started. Around 11 p.m. one night, I heard yelling from their house. Through the window, I saw Veronica storm out to her car and peel away. We figured it was just a bad argument. Then, later that week, we heard them going at it again through their screen door. We ignored it, respecting their privacy. But then Veronica's car disappeared. A day passed, then a week, then 2. Daniel's car was always there, but he started acting bizarre. He'd actively avoid us, cut conversation short, and always seemed on edge. After 3 weeks, my curiosity got the better of me. I went over and rang his bell. It took him nearly 3 minutes to answer. When he did, he was a mess, sweating, with a weird, tight smile plastered on his face. I asked about Veronica. He stammered that she'd gone to care for her sick mother out of state. I asked why he was sweating, and he said he was working out. He was talking so fast, so nervously. Then, from deep inside the house, I heard it, a woman's muffled scream for help. My blood ran cold. I asked what that was. "Oh, just a movie," he said too quickly. Forgot to pause it. But he just said he was working out. I just said okay and got out of there. I told Gabby everything, and we called the police, asking to remain anonymous. We requested a welfare check. An officer arrived. 10 minutes later, the street was full of cop cars and an ambulance. Daniel was let out in handcuffs, and Veronica was rushed out on a stretcher. We later learned the horrifying truth. Daniel had been abusing Veronica for years. He'd been holding her captive in their basement, a basement we didn't even know existed. He'd sold her car to make it look like she was gone. When I rang the doorbell, he'd told her to be quiet. She screamed for help, and in a fit of rage, he stabbed her 5 times. She died hours later at the hospital. As they put him in the squad car, he looked right at me. "I know you. It was you who snitched. You'll regret this." I tried to ignore him, knowing he was going away for life. You just never know what's happening behind closed doors. A few nights later, I woke up in the dark to see a silhouette standing over my bed. It was Daniel. He had a knife. "I know you'll regret this," he whispered. He lunged at me, and I screamed, and then I woke up for real, drenched in sweat, my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. It was just a nightmare, but the dream was so vivid, so real. The words he said were the exact same ones from the arrest.
To this day, that dream haunts me more than the real events. I've never even told my wife. We moved away shortly after we got married, but the trauma lingers.